You're fired.
I was made a scapegoat for a mistake by a younger director and received notice of termination. Yet, the next day, when the chairman visited for an inspection with employees, he noticed something and asked the younger director,
Seems my son isn't here?
What?
the absence of the chairman's son, who was supposed to work in the company, would soon dramatically change the situation. My name is Mike Adams, a 45-year-old employee. Told by my father to learn about society, I joined the current company.
Mike, today, a younger employee is joining us, apparently the president's son, and will be appointed as a director.
Is that so? This was whispered to me by Alex, a friendly colleague, 2 years younger than me. According to him, the president's son was to be appointed as a director today. Moreover, he's younger than Alex, and I thought he must be quite a capable person to be a director. But the following happened after that young director Tom finished his self-introduction.
Your name?
Mike Adams.
Mike, I have a small favor to ask.
Suddenly, he spoke to me, and before I knew it, he was asking me to buy coffee. Coffee. You didn't know where to find it. There's a vending machine outside. I pointed out the vending machine outside the office. However, Tom shook his head.
I'm telling you to buy it for me. Giving such a plain response, just as you look. Should I spell it for you? I'm telling you to buy me a coffee.
I was pointed out for my plain appearance and asked again by Tom. Everyone around, including Alex, was astonished. Why should I go out of my way to buy your coffee?
Tom, we'll buy it. Please sit and wait.
Alex hurriedly interrupted me from arguing back. Hearing that, Tom smugly returned to his desk.
Let's hurry and buy it, Mike.
I couldn't understand his actions, but I went to buy Tom's coffee with him. Why did you say that? He could have gone himself. After buying Tom's coffee from the vending machine, I questioned Alex. He immediately started looking around, making sure no one was listening, then explained.
Tom is the president's son. We'll get into trouble if we don't comply.
Trouble?
I heard from others. If you get on his bad side, you're out. It actually happened in a department before. It seems like he reports directly to the president.
Alex's complexion wasn't good as he revealed this. I was shocked such things were tolerated. So, that's how it is. Alex, thank you for helping me and giving me advice.
No problem. It'll be tough, but let's keep working hard.
Alex's expression softened, and he seemed pleased with my gratitude. I felt reassured, knowing there were still employees like him in the company. But then, strange things began happening around me. My pen's gone. Returning from the restroom during lunch break, my pen, which should have been on my desk, was missing. I searched around, but couldn't find it anywhere. I didn't have a choice. In the end, I decided to use a spare pen I had stored in my drawer. Then, I started working with it. Initially, I thought I just misplaced my pen. But similar incidents occurred the next day too. Arriving at work, my desk calendar, which I had left on my desk, was gone. Strange. Alex, have you seen my calendar? My pen disappeared yesterday too. Asking Alex, who sat opposite me, elicited an overly dramatic reaction. He quickly said, I don't know, but something seemed off. All right. Let me know if you find it.
Understood.
Alex's awkward demeanor caught my attention, but I decided not to press further and return to work. Yet, the following days continued with more of my personal items vanishing. Eventually, I suspected someone was deliberately behind this, especially since Alex had been acting strange since the losses began. Alex, can I talk to you for a sec?
Yes, what is it, Mike?
Surprised by my sudden call, he jumped. His unusual reaction piqued my interest. It was as if he was scared of talking to me. How about we take a break together? I've got something I want to discuss. At break time, I invited him, and after ensuring no one was around, he agreed, of course. What's been going on? You've been acting differently lately.
That is...
In the break room, as I was about to inquire about his recent behavior, Alex hesitated and then suddenly confessed.
I'm sorry. I've been hiding your belongings. It was me.
I was shocked by his sudden admission. I had suspected, but to hear Alex had been the one was surprising. Why would you do something like that? It's unlike you.
Well, actually.
Then, Alex told me that Tom had ordered him to do so. He said he was threatened to be fired by the company if he didn't obey the order, as Tom would tattle to the president.
I have a family and a daughter. I was afraid of disappointing them if I get fired.
I see. I understand your situation. Don't worry, you won't get fired over something like this.
What?
Alex was surprised by my confident assurance. He had a face that seemed to ask, "How can you say that with such confidence?" That would be revealed a bit later. It was when Alex and I returned to the office from the break room.
Thank you for lending me these, Mike.
As Alex returned my belongings, Tom approached us.
What are you doing, Alex?
Predictably, Tom, who had given Alex the instructions, bit the bait, and I pretended to be puzzled. What do you mean? I'm just getting back the things I lent to Alex. Despite being threatened, Alex trusted me enough to muster the courage. Feeling, this can't go on, I deliberately drew out Tom. I thought he wouldn't stop unless we did this because his actions had been so negative.
Really, Alex? So you were lying when you said those items were yours? Quite the thief, then?
Thief? I've said, I lent them to him, and now I'm getting them back. Despite Tom's baseless accusation, I pointedly called him out. The grimace on his face indicated that my words had struck a nerve with him.
Don't be fooled by appearances, but out of the conversation between me and Alex, in case you didn't know, I'm the president's son. You know what happens if you lie, right?
Tom's attempt to intimidate me caused a stir among the nearby employees. Then, one employee hurriedly appeared before Tom.
Tom, what are you doing here? The meeting time has long passed.
Apparently, skipping an important meeting to be here, most employees were appalled by Tom's behavior. However, in this situation, Tom smirked mischievously, as if he had come up with a good idea.
I wasn't even aware there was a meeting. Seems like Mike failed to inform me.
Tom tried to pin his mistake on me, causing me to frown involuntarily. Maybe he deliberately made a mistake intending to blame me.
So, what are you going to do now? This meeting was to prepare for tomorrow's client visit. If I report to the top that you didn't inform me, Mike, it'll be your responsibility, and you'll be fired.
No, Mike.
Hearing Tom's words, as he said them with a loud laugh, Alex looked at me, his face filled with worry. But such concern was unnecessary. "It's okay, Alex," I assured the anxious Alex, and then fixed Tom with a sharp gaze. "Me, fired. Before that happens, I'll gracefully leave this company. So no need for that."
Is that so? Then you better leave the company quickly.
Tom smiled contentedly upon hearing my words. I returned to my desk to gather my things.
Mike,
Alex called out as I finished packing and was about to leave the office, but I left without looking back.
The office feels refreshed without that plain guy, right, Alex?
The next day, Tom, looking at my empty desk and smirking, greeted Alex, who didn't share the sentiment. Alex's expression remained downcast. He came to work, believing in the last words I said to him, only to find I wasn't there.
Well, let's prepare to welcome the client's chairman.
With the client's inspection about to start, Tom left to begin preparations with the president.
"Weren't you missing from yesterday's meeting? Did something happen with the employee who resigned?"
Well, he didn't inform me about the meeting time. So after giving him a termination notice yesterday, he left, saving me the trouble.
While waiting near the company entrance for the visiting chairman, Tom spoke to his father, the president. The president responded with a detached, "Is that so?" as if it concerned someone else. It seemed he wasn't much interested in anything beyond his own appraisal.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm looking forward to today.
"Thank you for visiting our company. Please, this way. Let me show you inside."
The president and Tom escorted the client's chairman into the company. As they concluded the inspection, while discussing future matters, the chairman asked,
By the way, I was expecting to see my son here. Have you seen him?
Your son?
Surprised by the sudden question from the client's chairman, Tom asked back,
What? He didn't even mention that to you?
Realizing from Tom's reaction, the client's chairman seemed resigned about his son not disclosing his identity. Then, tentatively, the president asked the client's chairman,
"Excuse me, but who is your son, if I may ask?"
Mike Adams. I was told he works in this department. But is he off today?
The client's chairman is actually my father. Tom, pale-faced, was unable to answer the chairman's question.
"Don't tell me the employee who resigned yesterday was."
The president, putting pieces together, looked towards Tom. Tom nodded tremulously, admitting the president's suspicion was correct. At that moment, the president's anger erupted.
"Idiot! Bring him back right now."
Bring him back? What are you saying now, Dad?
As Tom resisted, the president recalled my credentials he had heard from his father.
"The chairman's son, unlike you, graduated from Harvard and has served as an executive."
What?
You're well aware, aren't you? My son is my pride and joy.
Feeling as if he was being praised himself, the chairman let his face relax carefreely. The chairman might be a helicopter parent, Tom thought, but the president's shout snapped him back.
"Bring him back now, immediately."
All right, all right.
Scolded by the president, Tom, feeling reckless, pulled out his cell phone from his suit and moved away to call me. The chairman watched, clearly exasperated.
Is it really necessary to bring my son if he's off today?
No, It's best if your son also joins our discussion. Please, feel free to wait here.
The president hastily put on a smile, having kept the chairman and his staff waiting in the reception room until I arrived.
You got me scolded by the president because of you. I wasn't informed you're the chairman's son. He's looking for you, so come to the company now.
Tom, sounding puzzled, called me on my phone. He had driven me to resign, and now this. I listened to Tom's words, but everything seemed to be going as planned. I knew my father was coming to inspect the company, so I had anticipated that Tom would find out who I really was, but it seemed like my father was still unaware that I had already resigned. Ready to push things further, I smirked, deciding to reveal everything myself. Understood. If my father's looking for me, I'll head over.
Don't you dare mention resigning or anything unnecessary.
Tom sounded desperate as he tried to pressure me, so I laughed mockingly. Well, let's see. It won't stay hidden forever, so I'm looking forward to discussing this with my father's involvement. Tom let out a frustrated sigh. After hanging up, I headed to the company where my father and the rest awaited. Arriving at the company and heading to the reception room, I saw my father, the president, and Tom.
Ah, there you are. Were you off today?
My father, oblivious to the situation, greeted me. I shook my head. I was ready to tell the truth. No, I wasn't off. I was unjustly given a termination notice by that director, so I felt compelled to resign. What? You were given a termination notice and resigned? My father and the president gasped in shock. And Tom turned pale. Ignoring the stricken Tom, I continued. He tried to pin his mistake on me. It's only logical. I couldn't possibly continue working under such a superior. With a sigh, the previously astonished president spoke up.
He said you forgot to inform him about yesterday's meeting. Was that a lie from my son?
Unfortunately, it seems you were misled by your son's words. Perhaps you should ask him directly. With a pressing smile, I made my point, causing the president to blanch. Turning to Tom, he raised his voice.
What is this, Tom? You lied to me too.
It's not a lie. I just forgot about the meeting.
Forgetting and then blaming the chairman's son for your mistake. That's a grave issue in itself.
Intending to make excuses, but digging his own grave instead. Classic Tom.
So, such things happened before my visit.
My father interjected, prompting the president to halt his scolding.
There's no need for further anger.
Chairman.
They thought the chairman was showing mercy. The president and Tom brightened up their expressions. But in the next moment, both were plunged into hell.
I'll be terminating our contract with your company. So be at ease. Farewell.
Chairman, I'm truly sorry. Regardless of not knowing about your son, what my son did, please reconsider.
As my father stood up and called out, "Let's go," the president hurriedly apologized and tried to persuade him to stay, but my father's mind was unchanged.
Even if I didn't know about my son, I can't continue a contract with a company that treats people so unfairly.
Hurriedly heading towards the door, my father, accompanied by his staff, was the first to leave the reception room. The president hastily followed after. I intended to take over my father's business eventually. Working here was just for social experience, so leaving the company just came a bit earlier than planned. Seeing Tom looking regretful, I couldn't help but gloat. Ah, but I doubt you and this company's future will be bright. If only you hadn't ordered Alex to take my belongings or tried to pin your mistake on me. What a shame.
Think you've won, huh? Doesn't matter if you're the chairman's son or we lose a contract, there are plenty of others.
You don't get it, do you? There aren't many companies with contracts as big as my father's company. Ever wonder why the president chased after the chairman so desperately not to lose the contract? Think hard with that poor brain of yours. When I couldn't help but express my astonishment, Tom flew into a rage. He seemed like someone who could only respond with anger. Well, I hope another big contract comes your way then. I'll take my leave now. Thank you for everything. I left the lounge, dodging the enraged him with insincere words. Unlike with the president, Tom didn't follow me, making me chuckle at the foreseeable future. Despite the president's efforts, the contract was terminated.
Really? He was so persistent, complaining about not wanting to lose the contract. If only he disciplined his son properly?
My father grumbled, sounding exhausted from reminiscing. Unlike Tom, the president could grasp the sense of crisis, so perhaps he has lost interest in his son.
It's your fault we lost the contract. Bring in another one.
Why do I have to suffer like this?
Tom lamented after being scolded by the president and thrown into sales. But the conversation in the lounge had been witnessed by employees, and rumors about the president and Tom spread to other companies.
Sorry, we're not interested. Please try elsewhere.
Leave and don't come back to our company.
Tom was met with rejection everywhere he went. Eventually, no company wants to contract with theirs.
What a mess.
Returning to the office without any sales success, Tom's failure caused unrest among the employees.
Maybe it's time to quit. This company seems doomed.
Indeed.
As whispers of resignation spread among the staff, Tom finally felt a sense of crisis. Then, to add insult to injury, someone approached him.
I'm resigning. Thank you for everything.
It was Alex, who handed in his resignation to Tom. Tom, taken aback, involuntarily accepted the resignation letter. Seeing Alex's resignation letter, he couldn't hide his anger.
What? Leaving the company in crisis? What are you thinking?
It doesn't matter what you think. I've already found another job.
Smiling, Alex, after delivering the double shock of resignation and job change to Tom, left the office feeling refreshed. Witnessing the entire scene, the employees become more agitated, realizing, indeed, I should also consider changing jobs. A week after Alex left, he started working at my father's company.
I've missed you, Mike. I was shocked to learn you're the chairman's son.
Sorry for surprising you. We got successfully reunited at my father's company. Alex shared this tearfully. In fact, after I resigned, I revealed my identity to Alex and invited him to work together at my father's company. I owed a lot to him from our time at the previous company. Leaving him at the old company would have risked his job. Indeed, the previous company we both worked at went bankrupt. Contracts were canceled one after another, and employees resigned en masse. The president had no choice but to declare bankruptcy, and Tom was blamed for the downfall. Having lived at home until now, Tom was kicked out and seems to be living alone in a shabby apartment. Rumors have spread within the same industry, so he's been turned down at interviews and now lives off part-time work in a restaurant. He's constantly scolded by younger part-timers there. I thought of dropping by with Alex to catch a glimpse of Tom's miserable face, if I feel like it. As for me, having gained sufficient social experience at the previous company, I was appointed vice president. Eventually, you'll take over for me. I'm counting on you to work even harder, my father said, hinting at the future responsibilities I would bear. Alex, having been just a fellow employee until recently, was full of confusion. Just treat me like you always do. I prefer it that way.
Really? It feels a bit presumptuous. But I'm grateful to you, Mike. You helped me at the previous company and introduced me to this one. Thank you.
Seeing Alex's beaming smile made me happy too. He said it allowed him to protect his family, but I reminded him that it was his achievement. Let's both keep up the good work.
Yes, of course.
And so, we embarked on a new beginning, striving forward every day.
In a restaurant with a nice open terrace in Greenpoint. As I smoothly parked my pickup truck in front of it, I could hear my daughter, Emily's voice, who had arrived earlier.
That's my dad's car. He uses it for work.
Then, cutting her off, a man's raspy voice echoed.
Coming here in that kind of vehicle is so inappropriate. Is your father a high school graduate working in a factory?
Emily looked perplexed at his words. The owner of the raspy voice seemed to have had a few drinks already, grinning with a flushed face. It had been a while since I encountered someone who thought making such tasteless jokes was funny. After fixing a parking ticket to my pickup, I walked up to the man. I unbuttoned my freshly tailored jacket from the day before yesterday and presented my business card right under his red nose with utmost calm and friendliness. Here, I'm the president of a factory with an annual revenue of $50 million. Jack appeared taken aback. He was frantically searching the company name on my business card on his smartphone. No wonder. In Jack's worldview, someone who rides in a pickup couldn't possibly have a higher status than himself. Then, as if introducing myself, I began to recount my life story, answering his questions. My name is Victor. I'm a 63-year-old factory owner. The factory has grown significantly over the years and so has the number of employees, but it took a lot of twists and turns to get to where I can talk about it like this. The story goes back to my childhood. Born as the son of a poor textile mill owner in the Midwest, I spent my childhood in hunger. I was born in the 1960s, a time when inexpensive and durable cotton products were being produced in large quantities in the U.S., causing the value of traditional textile mills to plummet. With that income, we couldn't make ends meet for the whole family, and there were times when my father had to kill a chicken that came into our yard to provide for our dinner that day. I was ordered by my father to do it several times, and the sound and the feel of it are still with me, making me recall those moments whenever I see chicken meat. One day, when my parents could no longer bear it on the factory's income alone, they started saying they were going to a community meeting, leaving me at home and not returning until late at night. The next morning, I would find a pile of flyers at the entrance. They were flyers for an invitation to join a new religious movement. Looking back, I think they were getting paid incentives by the cult for working as recruiters. What started as a recruitment effort for survival gradually consumed my parents' spirits. Every election, my mother would repeat in a frenzy.
Believers will be saved. So, if you vote for that party, everything will be saved.
That's right. If you give up your desires, you'll be liberated. So, you too.
It was always like this. No way could I have a proper life in such a home. I needed to leave.
I'm thinking of leaving.
Why, aren't you happy just being here?
I'm just fed up.
Don't you lack faith? Did you do your duty today? If you do your duty, you won't have to think about unnecessary things.
I'm leaving anyway.
Saying that, I packed my things and stormed out of the house. It was the night of an 18-year-old, just a bit away from graduating high school. The spring wind was blowing fiercely. It wasn't that I had nowhere to go. I had jotted down my uncle's address and phone number in my notes. My uncle, living in Fresno, was single but had been concerned about our family since I was young.
Whenever something comes up, give me a call. I feel like I understand what you're going through.
My uncle often told me that. Entering a phone booth, I dialed his number with trembling fingers, and his gruff voice answered,
Hello.
Hello, who's this?
It's Victor.
Victor. What's going on at this hour?
Well, I've run away from home.
There was a brief silence as if my uncle was thinking, but then he said,
Got it. Come to my place. I'll take care of you.
Soon after, I took a slow train to Fresno and ended up rolling into my uncle's house. My uncle was an electrician by trade and was often out during the day. The house was scattered with various tools and parts, like wire cutters and wrenches. What caught my eye, however, was a box-shaped machine fitted in the back of the room, unlike anything I had seen before. This box had knobs of various sizes on it. Once, while my uncle was away, I turned the knobs. Suddenly, a loud noise unlike anything I had heard before, along with intermittent faint beeping sounds, started coming out.
Interested?
Whoa.
I turned away in embarrassment as if caught in a misdeed when he spoke from behind me. However, my uncle was looking at me with excited eyes.
It's called ham radio. With this, you can communicate with people all over the world. How about that? Isn't it cool?
With people all over the world.
Yo, that's right. You can have conversations with people on the other side of the earth through invisible signals. If you want to know more, I'll teach you everything from scratch.
From then on, I became addicted to ham radio. I clung to my uncle day and night, fascinated by this strange box I had never seen before and the sounds from the other side of the globe that came from it. When my uncle was out, I would spend the night in front of the radio, deeply engrossed in communication, often realizing it was morning before I knew it. That's when I started helping with my uncle's work. I would hop into the passenger seat of my uncle's pickup truck and travel around Fresno for electrical work. Since the pickup didn't have a car stereo, my uncle would bring a radio into the car, teaching me various things in tune with its broadcast. I think more than half of the important things in life I learned in those conversations with my uncle in the pickup.
Listen, Victor. The key is to think calmly. No matter how tough the situation, analyze the current state, identify the problems, hypothesize, and then test. If you can do this, you're not likely to fail.
However, my uncle passed away due to an unforeseen accident during construction work. I couldn't get the details from the contractors, but it seems my uncle became a casualty trying to save a colleague who had made a mistake, I felt an unbearable sadness and frustration. The irony of my uncle, who had dedicated his passion to his work as an electrician, dying because of electricity, was not lost on me. With no other relatives, I inherited my uncle's house and a pickup truck. This left me alone again. But it was different from when I had left my parents' house. I was now equipped with the skills and knowledge of an electrician that my uncle had taught me, and more importantly, a belief and love for my work. Finding a job wasn't hard. The semiconductor boom was happening at the time, and the United States electrical industry was still vibrant. I interviewed at several factories and was eagerly recruited by all for my demonstrated skills. Eventually, I got a job at one of the largest factories, a name familiar to anyone, though in hindsight, I think it was a mistake. Within a few months, I had adapted to the work itself. It was a simple task of inspecting parts carried by a conveyor belt, a no-brainer compared to electrical engineering work. However, the real problem lay elsewhere. It was the constant berating and physical punishment from the factory manager. Whenever he was in a bad mood, he frequently stopped the line and called me over.
Victor, come here.
Yes.
What's with that attitude? You look bored with your work.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You probably think anyone can do this simple job. Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm the one employing you. You're still half-baked.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry isn't enough. Show me with your actions,
And with that, I'd receive a slap. On a good day, it would be 2, back and forth. This had become the routine. Yet, I was able to keep going because the pay was good. There was another reason I managed to continue working. It was meeting a woman who was in charge of the factory's accounting at the time. Her name was Ashley. Right after receiving a beating from the factory manager, Ashley would discreetly show concern for me and quietly offer me ointment where no one else could see.
I always see what's happening. It must be hard.
No, I'm used to it. Besides, the pay is good. I just think of it as including a bonus for the beatings.
That's too harsh. Please don't overdo it.
There was also a time when, after being slapped by the factory manager and bleeding from the mouth, Ashley gave me a handkerchief. Tucked inside the handkerchief was a note with her contact information, saying, "If there's anything I can do, please contact me anytime." Meeting Ashley certainly saved me in many ways. There's no doubt that she eased the feelings of gloom that had settled over me after my uncle's death. However, a decisive moment eventually arrived.
Hey, who did this?
One day, the factory manager stopped the line and yelled loudly enough for all the employees to hear. He is holding a significantly bent part in his hand.
If someone doesn't come forward now, I'll knock everyone down.
I knew who had checked that part. It was a new coworker next to me who, upon stealing a glance, was biting his lip, trembling. If I remained silent, everyone here would undoubtedly end up getting slapped. Thinking this, I instinctively raised my hand.
It was me.
What?
I'm sorry. I overlooked it.
Do you realize what you've done?
Yes. I deeply apologize.
The factory manager stood in front of me and slapped me across the face. Not satisfied with just that, he turned and delivered a knee strike to my midsection. I couldn't breathe, and as I squeezed my eyes shut, tears naturally started to flow.
Oh, You're crying. Even now, you're trying to be the tragic hero. Though with that face, you're too ugly for it.
With a look of triumph, the factory manager kicked me in the stomach with the tip of his shoe and walked away. That night, as I was cleaning up alone, Ashley stayed until the end.
Good work.
Good work.
The factory manager is terrible, isn't he? He doesn't have to say things like that.
It's okay. It would have taken more time if things continued that way. And we were already behind schedule.
Actually, that wasn't your fault, was it, Victor?
I fell silent.
I saw Ken, who works next to you on the line, inspecting parts while staggering.
Someone had to take responsibility.
But you didn't have to take it upon yourself, Victor.
It's okay. I won't be here much longer.
What?
Perhaps I was being reckless. But thinking about quitting was the truth.
I'm thinking of leaving this company. There are more interesting things to do. I want to do what I love.
Ashley was a woman who chose her words carefully.
That sounds really good. I want you to do what you love. I believe in you, and you should too. But I'll miss you if you're gone.
Saying that, Ashley looked down.
If you'd like, why don't you quit with me? And we can start a new factory together.
Her cheeks blushed. Even in the dimly lit factory, I could tell.
If we could do that, I'd be so happy.
And so, I decided to resign from the company with Ashley and start a new factory. In 1989, the year the Berlin Wall fell, Ashley and I got married. As an aside, the year after I left, an assault case occurred at the factory, and that factory manager was apparently arrested. It might have been a matter of time. Ashley and I launched a factory manufacturing semiconductor parts in 1990. I took on roles in sales and as a technician. Ashley handled all the accounting. However, initially, the business didn't go well. We barely made ends meet, primarily through electrical work I took on personally, rather than orders for parts. It wasn't surprising. The semiconductor industry was showing a declining trend. Considering the cost of assembly, it was impossible for a new small company to afford equipment for producing cutting-edge parts, so we specialized in technical expertise rather than production capacity, taking on manufacturing of parts. I never thought the skills I acquired in electrical work would come in handy in such a place. Whether it was because of that strategy or just luck, companies started to place orders, hearing that there are skilled craftsmen in that factory. It might have been the most fulfilling time of my life. Waking up early, going to the factory, and silently holding the soldering iron by myself. Or facing the machines that polish parts. Returning late at night, barely eating before falling asleep with Ashley. On rare days off, I glued myself to the amateur radio I inherited from my uncle. I think Ashley was incredibly accepting of such a husband. In the endlessly rotating days like a conveyor belt, Ashley and I had a daughter.
It's a girl. Hey, what do you think we should name her?
How about Emily after Ashley?
Is it okay to name her after me?
Yeah, I prefer that. Gus, we named our newborn daughter Emily. Emily was born healthy. But it was around this time, perhaps, Ashley's body began to harbor illness.
Unfortunately, your wife's condition has reached stage 3. At this stage, surgery would likely be ineffective.
Ashley had suddenly complained of severe abdominal pain while at work and was urgently hospitalized nearby. I rushed to the hospital upon hearing the news. I remember how the doctor's voice sounded unnervingly impersonal. The doctor informed me that Ashley had terminal pancreatic cancer. Can Ashley live?
I can say for certain, a 5-year survival rate for stage 3 pancreatic cancer patients is about 6 to 7%.
Why does it have to be Ashley? The doctor didn't answer my question. Instead, he started writing something on the chart and began preparing for the next patient.
I'm sorry for causing such a fuss.
When went for a visit with little Emily, Ashley was lying in the hospital bed, shrinking in size, but still managing a smile. Wearing the hospital gown made the petite Ashley look even smaller. Don't apologize. You've done nothing wrong.
But I still have today's accounting work for the factory left to do.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. When a loved one falls ill, you realize the preciousness of everyday life. Ashley's illness made me realize how happy I had been. But why, of all people, did it have to be Ashley?
Emily, make sure to support your dad, okay?
Yes.
Even young Emily seemed to understand the situation and smiled without any worries.
And you believe in yourself. I believe what you're trying to do is right.
Stop it. Don't be so formal.
No, I want to say it while I can.
Ashley was serious. The battle with her illness didn't last long. Perhaps that's what Ashley wanted. But now, there's no way to know for sure. Ashley's last expression was very peaceful. Ashley's glasses were placed inside her coffin, and I felt like I had lost everything. Had everything I'd done up to now been a mistake? I couldn't save Ashley. I had made her suffer. Maybe she wasn't happy. For a while, I couldn't focus on anything, not the machines I loved to tinker with, nor the amateur radio. The world seemed gray. Suddenly, while looking at the factory machines, I wondered what would happen if I stuck my head inside one of them. The machines I once loved and obsessed over now looked demonic. During those days of depression, I began to drown in alcohol. I knew I had to work, but my body wouldn't move. I started drinking from the morning and continued in a daze. Our savings ran dry, and without Emily knowing, I borrowed money from the newly popular consumer credit ATMs. Surprisingly, it was too easy to borrow money, which only made me feel more lost. I even thought it might be quicker to gamble with that money. Or I considered the worst-case scenarios. When I came home in a daze, the amateur radio was emitting noise. Perhaps the switch had been turned on by accident. But when I went to the room with the radio, Emily, who should have been at school, was standing in front of the desk, looking apologetic.
I just touched it a little, and now it won't stop.
I felt an overwhelming love for Emily. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, tears started flowing. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to do anything even though you're here, Emily. But Emily, unfazed by my sentimentality, was staring intently at the radio.
Dad, what is this?
Oh, this is a magical machine that lets you talk to people all over the world.
With people all over the world?
Yes, you can have conversations with people on the other side of the globe using invisible signals. If you want to know more, I'll teach you everything from scratch.
Really? Teach me.
Listening intently to the sounds coming from the radio, Emily's eyes sparkled with curiosity, and I saw a reflection of my younger self in her. That's right, Uncle. I remembered what my uncle taught me in the pickup truck.
Listen, Victor. The key is to use your head calmly. No matter how tough the situation, analyze the current state, identify the problems, formulate hypotheses, and then test them. If you can do this, you'll rarely fail.
My gray everyday life seemed to gradually regain its color. From that moment, I temporarily paused my electrical contracting work and shifted our core business to the manufacture of electronic machine parts. I focused on computer components. As personal computers became more widespread, I believed that an era was coming where everyone would carry a small computer with them at all times. Although we had fewer than 10 employees, they all respected my decision. About 10 years after deciding to shift our business, my factory was known in the industry for its high technical capabilities, becoming a well-regarded establishment among those in the know. The rapid growth of my factory in such a short period was largely due to the overall growth of the computer industry, especially the emergence of the smartphone in the United States, which experienced explosive growth. My factory had been developing small components for computers, but we adapted these components for smartphones, and the demand for these parts was tremendous. At that time, my daughter Emily was about to enter high school. She had been studying at a local public junior high school, where she consistently stood out for her academic performance. As a parent, I felt proud every time my daughter brought home perfect scores on her exams. When Emily brought home materials from a certain high school,
Dad, actually, I want to go to this school.
Looking at the materials, it was a prestigious private girls' high school affiliated with a well-known university. I was pleased that my daughter was thinking about her future so independently. At the same time, I reflected that supporting her through this application process was also a parent's duty. That sounds great. You should apply.
Really? Are you sure?
Is there a reason not to?
Well, there's the tuition fee.
Understanding Emily's concerns, I reassured her. Don't worry about money. Things are different now. The economy is good. Covering the tuition for one child isn't a big deal. Hearing this, Emily's face lit up with genuine happiness. And so, Emily successfully passed the entrance exams for the high school. However, this also meant that we would be spending thousands of dollars each year on tuition fees for the next 10 years. I braced myself for this. But my worries turned out to be unfounded. One day, as I was heading to work, one of my employees was frantically talking on the phone. Thinking it might be another weird complaint, I checked in only to find that the call was actually about something incredibly positive. What's going on?
Boss, you won't believe it. That big corporation wants to use our components in their new smartphones.
What? That big corporation was already a giant in the smartphone industry by then, although at the time it was still a name only known to a select few. Becoming a supplier for this company meant betting on a major business opportunity. What did they say on the phone?
They said they'll be visiting us soon and want to meet us in person to discuss.
We can't just sit here. Let's get ready. Everything went smoothly, and I successfully signed a contract with the corporation. The contract was worth millions of dollars. I was overwhelmed by the unprecedented amount, but knowing that this would allow me to provide for Emily filled me with joy. The fact that something I had created was in the hands of so many people still felt surreal. Uncle, I did it. Ashley, we did it. I reported our success and the hardships we overcame in front of their graves. I couldn't help but feel that both of them were smiling back at me. When the company's operations were well on track and Emily had become a college student, she came to me for advice, saying she was seeing someone. Hearing that her partner was the heir to a well-known bank, I thought I needed to dress appropriately for the occasion. So I arrived today in my uncle's keepsake light truck. To me, this truck is more valuable than any luxury car, which is why I was a bit upset. I apologize. After finishing my story, Jack, who was to become my son-in-law's father, was wide-eyed in disbelief. It seemed he was desperate to maintain his own pride.
Such fairy tales don't exist in reality.
If you think it's a lie, please feel free to check. It's all on our company's website. As I said that, Jack began to fiddle with his smartphone. And it didn't take long for him to realize the truth. He visibly deflated, losing all his earlier bluster. Though he acted like a megabank president, I knew he was actually just a branch manager. He had probably tried to assert his status, acting more important than usual. To drive the point home, I added, "The smartphone you're holding, made by that famous company, likely contains our parts. Thank you for always using them." After hearing that, Jack never spoke another word. Perhaps I had spoken too much. However, surprisingly, Jack's relatives seemed to take me in a positive light. Except for Emily, who seemed dissatisfied with how things went and chided me in the car on our way back.
You didn't have to say all that.
Really? Sorry. But wasn't he the one being unreasonable? If we let that slide, it would be like denying your mother's existence too.
No, I was happy you talked about it. But you didn't have to mention all those stories from when I was little in front of everyone.
Emily's face turned red, embarrassed. I see. But those things are important to me. Uncle, your mom, and you. You've all supported my life. I wanted to convey that properly. We both fell silent. The good thing about the light truck is that its engine noise drowns out any awkward silence. Feeling the oil smell and hearing the engine sound always brought me peace.
I'm thinking of calling off the engagement with him.
Is that so? The father was one thing, but his son seemed decent enough.
Yeah, he is decent. But sometimes, he treats me like a secretary or a maid, asking me to fetch things or memorize his schedule. I don't want to live like that.
Emily looked gloomy.
And actually, I really want to become a researcher in engineering, not just graduate college. I want to create new technologies to make people happy. But he doesn't seem to support me becoming a researcher. Maybe because I'm a woman.
Live the way you want to? I remembered what Ashley had once told me. Believe in yourself. Do what you love. I believe that what you want to do is right. I felt I understood how Ashley felt when she said those words to me. Time passed, and as expected, Emily's engagement fell through. Having their pride hurt was probably not easy for the other family. Emily seemed somewhat relieved when she told me it was over. To the world, it might seem like she missed out on a golden opportunity, but real happiness lies elsewhere. Afterward, Emily graduated from college and decided to go to a graduate school in the United Kingdom. Though I had braced myself, saying goodbye was still hard.
Don't look so gloomy. It's not like we'll never see each other again.
But still, seeing your daughter leave home is...
Okay, I'm going now. Take care.
Be careful. Call me if anything happens. Waving goodbye, Emily went through the boarding gate to her flight to the United Kingdom. Months after that farewell, Though I had acted strong at the airport, I found myself feeling a profound sadness in Emily's empty room. To distract myself from the loneliness, I turned to my amateur radio. It's a long-standing habit that felt like a part of me since moving in with my uncle. Hello CQ, hello CQ, hello CQ, this is Ya4TOC. If anyone is listening, I'd appreciate a call back. Over. Soon after, I received a response from a station in the United Kingdom. It was a woman's voice.
Hello CQ, hello CQ, hello CQ. This is W2YA7KR. Go ahead.
I wondered when she had gotten her ham radio license. At first, I thought I had misheard because of my loneliness. But there was no mistaking it. I responded with my whole being to the voice of my beloved daughter, coming through this magical box. W2YA7KR, thank you for your response. I'm so glad to hear you're doing well. Love, your father.
You married you, a poor woman with a high school diploma. I'd love to meet your husband.
What? At the middle school reunion, my former classmate Erica, who looked down on me. I never thought I'd still be hearing this kind of thing as an adult.
Maybe you're too embarrassed to introduce him to anyone. Is your husband a high school grad, too? People need to match intellectually, right? If you're both high school grads, maybe you're both working part-time jobs. It must be tough at the bottom.
Intellectual level. Bottom. I can't stand her insulting not just me, but my husband, too. Just when I should give her a piece of my mind. A car parked next to us. It was clearly a luxury car. The black, polished body reflected the streetlights, drawing everyone's attention. And when the person got out of the driver's seat, everyone gasped. It felt like a scene from a movie. The man made eye contact with me and came over with a wave. And then Erica was about to face the greatest humiliation of her life. Catherine, was somewhat of a local celebrity. My dad was a business owner, running the biggest and most popular supermarket in our school district. I grew up in what I considered a fairly wealthy home. My parents got along well, and their educational values for me were nearly identical. As long as I listened in class and did my homework, I was free to do as I pleased. I got more allowance than most of my friends, so after school, I often went shopping or played with them, then did my homework at night, leading a pretty normal life.
Catherine, you never flaunt your wealth. If it were me, I'd totally brag about it.
It wasn't uncommon for friends and classmates to be surprised by this, but I always thought,
it's my parents who are incredible for running the business and supporting each other. I haven't done anything brag-worthy myself.
So I never felt superior to those around me. My friends understood how I felt and accepted it, but there was someone who reacted differently.
True, Catherine, you really don't have anything to boast about yourself, do you?
Erica was like the embodiment of both beauty and brains. Despite being in the same class since elementary school, our relationship couldn't exactly be described as good. I admired Erica, who was pretty and good at both studies and sports, but she seemed to dislike me and would pick on me at every opportunity. Especially when test scores were returned, she would always check mine and sneer.
I wonder if you're a child of a wealthy family, and you're not good with money.
In her hand was a perfect score test paper. In contrast, I had just the average score in the class. Erica has been hiring tutors since elementary school, and she's already studying for high school level. Her grades clearly show the results of her efforts.
Even as daughters of business owners, we're so different. I feel bad for Catherine's dad.
Yes, her father is also a president. He is running a major entertainment agency, and Erica, the only daughter, is expected to join the family business or become an entertainer herself. It's great that she has such ambitious dreams in middle school, but I don't understand why she looks down on me so much. My grades aren't too bad, and I don't deserve such criticism. Sure, we both are wealthy, but our families naturally have different spending habits and life philosophies.
My parents think I don't need tutors for now.
I wasn't trying to shift the blame to my parents, but I wanted to make it clear that we are different. However, Erica just shrugged.
People with a naive mindset like yours will eventually face a harsh reality. I'm looking forward to seeing your future.
As if her words were a curse, dark clouds loomed over my father's business. A large shopping mall was built right next to the shopping district. It didn't take long for this place, offering food, clothes, and everything else, to become the center of community life. Customers drifted to the shopping mall, and retail stores in the shopping district fell into financial difficulties. And just like the others, my father's supermarket site's sales declined as the days passed. Within 6 months, several small stores began to close down. Feeling the crisis intensifying, another 6 months passed.
Catherine, we're moving next month.
I knew it, but still asked.
What about the supermarket?
That supermarket is closing soon.
The next day, signs saying going out of business sale. Thank you for your support appeared at my father's supermarket. My friends lamented the loss of the supermarket. But predictably, Erica was different.
See, I told you your parents were not good at spending money.
On my last day of school, while my classmates held a farewell party, she was the only one who seemed pleased about my departure, continuing to look down on me.
My parents did their best. There's no reason for them to be ridiculed.
I just brushed off her words and got for the situation.
After all, I'll never see her again.
10 years passed, and I was reminded of the reunion through an invitation email. I wonder if I'll see Erica again. Even though we've both grown, she might still find fault with me. I wasn't keen on going, but aside from her, my classmates had been good to me. In fact, a few friends had contacted me individually, saying they wanted to see again at the reunion. I figured the benefits would outweigh the negatives, so I decided to attend. At the venue, there were familiar faces and some who had changed so much they were unrecognizable, each following their own path, sharing many stories. I was having a meaningful time until it was abruptly disrupted.
Hi, Catherine. Long time no see.
Erica approached me with her entourage from back then, sporting flashy makeup and a glittering party dress. Honestly, she looked stunning and glamorous. She had grown into a beautiful woman. However, her expression hadn't changed at all from those days. Hi, Erica.
I recognized you right away, even after 10 years. That poor-looking outfit, that face that's seen hard times. Well, it can't be helped. Your father's business didn't go well, and you couldn't even go to college, right? It must be really tough working with just a high school diploma.
I didn't respond to her words, just listened silently. I knew there was nothing to gain by reacting.
If you're ever struggling with money, don't hesitate to ask me. I might be able to help you out.
Wow, Erica, that's so kind of you.
That's what successful people say, right?
The other women with Erica cheered her on. These were her followers. They've always obeyed her, and it seems nothing has changed. Pleased with herself, Erica crossed her arms and handed me her business card.
Well, I'm the heir apparent to that famous entertainment agency, so of course I'd be generous.
Indeed, her business card read the vice president. Her followers peered at it and exclaimed in admiration.
The vice president. Wow.
Which celebrity belongs to your agency?
People you all know from recent TV shows.
Erica's bragging heated up, and we, feeling fed up, managed to break away and share a wry smile. As the reunion ended, we said our goodbyes and headed towards the hotel's driveway. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Ouch, Erica.
Hey, you're not leaving already, are you? We haven't really had a chance to talk. Let's go for a drink. I'm very interested in hearing about the hardships of the poor.
I swallowed my retort and gave a minimal excuse. Sorry, my husband is picking me up, so maybe some other time.
Your husband?
Erica looked puzzled.
You're married?
Well, yeah, I take off my ring for work.
Wow, I'd love to meet your husband.
What?
Is it that bad? Maybe you're too embarrassed to introduce him. Well, I guess someone from the same poor, uneducated background as you would match, right? I can hardly find someone on my own high level. Your husband is a high school grad too, right? People need to match intellectually after all. If you're both high school grads, maybe he's working part-time jobs too. It must be really hard at the bottom.
Intellectual level, the bottom. I can't stand her mocking not just me, but my husband, too. Just as I was about to retort, a car pulled up beside us. It was clearly a luxury car. The black, polished body reflected the streetlight, drawing everyone's attention. Then, as the person emerged from the driver's seat, everyone caught their breath. A tall, handsome man with blue eyes appeared. The scene felt like something out of a movie. A good-looking man stepping out at a grand hotel. Whispers of is he an actor or a model? I feel like I've seen him somewhere could be heard. The man caught my eye and walked over with a wave.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Catherine.
I wasn't waiting. You're right on time. Thanks for picking me up. Sorry to bother you when you're busy.
I'd go anywhere for you.
He kissed me on the cheek. Amidst the cheers from the crowd, Erica's eyes widened and she muttered,
Aaron.
Given her industry connections, his name came to her easily. Yes, that. I hesitated to introduce him because I thought you might know.
No way, he's your husband.
That's right. Catherine is my partner.
Aaron responded fluently in English. He was French and had been an actor since his childhood. He was such a talented actor that he appeared in Hollywood movies, but after graduating from college, he wanted to support the movie industry behind the scenes, so he started his own film company. His actor-like physique and well-defined features are because he was indeed an actor. And it's likely that many people, not just those in the industry, but also moviegoers, would recognize him.
It's unbelievable. A high school graduate and the daughter of a bankrupt company is his wife.
Well, actually, our business isn't bankrupt. And I'm not just a high school grad.
What do you mean?
I had kept quiet to avoid explaining, but not wanting the misunderstanding to grow, I decided to reveal my story from the time I transferred schools to the present. While the supermarket in the commercial district closed, my father's main business was a food company, with the supermarket being just one part of its subsidiary operations. We lived there to oversee the successful supermarket, but moved near the headquarters once there was no reason to stay. Seeing my father strive to build an industry that could compete with the shopping mall after we moved, I realized something. Both my father and Erica, who is also president's daughter, were working so hard. I was born into a wealthy family by chance, but I thought it would be a waste to do nothing and settle for that situation. I worried about whether I could support my parents when they got older. I dedicated myself to my studies for the rest of middle school, desiring to learn in a broader world. Fortunately, we had the financial means for me to study abroad, My parents respected my opinion and happily sent me off. I went to France, where I furthered my language studies at a local school. My interest in the foreign culture led me to want to continue my education there, so I aimed for one of the most prestigious universities in France. Fortunately, it seemed I was good at studying, as I was able to pass the baccalaureate exam with ease. During my university years, I felt it was a waste that I hadn't taken my studies seriously when I was younger. It was there that I met Aaron. Unfamiliar with movies, I interacted with him, an arts major, without realizing he was an actor. I had thought he was unusually popular. "You look like an actor," I casually remarked, to which he laughed and revealed,
"I am actually an actor."
Apparently, my friendship without knowing his fame greatly affected him.
Everyone usually approaches me for my fame.
Being a Hollywood actor, it was inevitable, but he found comfort in my unbiased companionship. As graduation approached, he confessed, and we married within a year. He retired from acting and seems to have been scouted by Hollywood, but he wanted to make movies his way, so now he's traveling the world. I work as his secretary, and we returned to the country for the reunion. Summing up the situation, Erica gritted her teeth.
So, you're not taking over your father's company. Talk about being ungrateful.
My father's company isn't family-owned. The next president will be chosen from the current executives.
What do you mean? Are you saying I'll be picked as the next president through connections?
That's not what I meant.
You've always been like this, subtly putting me down. You had the money but chose not to study, and now bragging about your husband. Right. Everyone else must think so too.
Erica turned around, seeking agreement from her still-present entourage. But they stepped back, giving non-committal responses.
It doesn't seem like she's mocking.
Every company is run differently.
What's this? Just because Catherine is successful, everyone flips their stance. Isn't everyone just weak for titles?
It's not like that.
I have plenty of titles. I graduated from a renowned university and am the vice president of a famous entertainment agency at this age.
Entertainment agency. Oh, that reminds me.
Aaron repeated Erica's words. After a thoughtful pause, looked at Erica intently and asked,
"Aren't you Richard's daughter?"
How do you know my father?
I met him at a party 5 years ago. I think you were there, too.
Oh, maybe that time.
I didn't talk about work because it seemed you didn't know me then, but your father introduced us. I didn't understand because of your poor French, though.
What did you say?
Ignoring Erica's distressed face, Aaron continued.
I said it was okay to speak English, but you insisted on speaking broken French. I went along with it because you seemed self-conscious, but honestly, it was hard to watch. You said you graduated from a top American university, but your French was barely understandable, and about your company.
Wait.
Erica shouted, seemingly trying to stop him, but Aaron didn't halt.
A lot of people are transferring to other agencies, right? I haven't heard good things. I hope your company lasts until you become president.
Seemingly devastated by his words, Erica staggered to a nearby bench and looked away.
You should really look at yourself and those around you.
Aaron led me away from there. In the car, he asked me,
How was the reunion?
But I was more concerned about Erica. Aaron, you didn't have to go that far, especially with everyone watching.
Catherine, you're kind, but she doesn't see, or maybe chooses not to see, the people around her. She was mean to you. Probably, no one ever really pointed out the reality to her or paid attention. It's sad for her too. Maybe saying a little could be good for her.
I hope so. I am grateful for Aaron's help, but I couldn't stop thinking about Erica's feelings and spend a few days feeling troubled. A few days later, Aaron and I attended a party hosted by an American distribution company. We were so busy greeting people that we hardly had time to eat. Then, I thought I saw Erica in the corner of my eye. She stood alongside the current president, her father. She was talking to someone at a TV station, but the person had frowned and left. When I tried to look away, our eyes met. She looked like she was about to cry and then left the hall. Unable to stay put, I excused myself to Aaron and followed her, approaching her slowly in the lobby where she was looking down.
You're laughing at me, aren't you?
She spoke without looking at me, her voice much weaker than I remembered.
Ever since we were young, I belittled you, looked down on you, and did the same at the reunion. But in reality, I'm the foolish one. With my job not going well, it must be amusing to you, right?
That's not true. I think you're amazing. Despite struggling with French, you try to communicate, and you've withstood the pressure of being a vice president. I respect Erica for being able to strive continuously.
That's a lie. Are you just pitying me? Go ahead and laugh.
I can't look down on someone I don't feel superior to, but there is one thing I think that you are foolish. Erica looked at me with eyes reddened. Her expression not one of anger or hatred, but of resignation. You're not alone. Even if you're not good at studies or wealthy, there are plenty of people who see you for who you are. So there's no need to pretend to be strong.
I'm not pretending to be strong.
Then why were you always worried about exam scores, money, and educational background? You should know that having all those things doesn't necessarily fulfill you, right?
That's because.
What do you want to do, Erica? How do you want to live? It's okay to do what you like because it's your life.
It's too late. My father expects me to. He believes I will revive the company. Because I've always listened to my parents. I can do what they want. I always have.
It seems that her parents were pleased when she did well in her studies, saying, "Our company is safe with Erica around." It's unclear if they were serious or joking at the time. However, she was indeed praised by her parents based on her academic performance. So she continued to work hard. Then she realized that her classmates would be envious of her. Her self-esteem grew stronger and stronger. However, she envied me, another president's daughter, who was raised with love and had many friends despite not focusing on studies.
It's always bothered me that you were recognized by your parents and friends even though you didn't try as hard as I did. I didn't want to admit it.
Erica slowly opened up to me. I continued to listen to her beside me.
I understood that studying and money are not everything when I saw you. But for me, that was all I had. I had to live by wielding my money and grades. It's a fact that I've been acknowledged for it all along.
That's true.
My way of living has never been denied by anyone. So, I believed it was the right way. But I realized from you and Aaron's words the other day that people were just allies of my status, not of me.
Looking at her, I felt pained yet saw her as fleeting and beautiful.
You said earlier, right? Our company's been like that recently, not getting any attention. But my parents think if they put me in charge as the president, things will somehow work out, even though that's impossible.
That's because your parents see the real you. I grasped her hands. They know you're hardworking and you don't shy away from your responsibilities, which is why they trust you with the important role of leading the company.
Is it just because I'm a convenient daughter?
Aaron said he wouldn't let someone he doesn't trust touch his belongings. People who own something as precious as a company must all feel the same.
Is that so?
Why don't you talk to your parents? If you share your feelings with them, you can build a better relationship. You've been holding back all this time, right?
Yes, I've been enduring.
As she started to cry, I offered her a handkerchief. While getting ready to leave with Aaron, I felt a hand on my shoulder, just like before. Erica,
Catherine,
her eyes, looking straight at me, shone brighter than anyone's.
I told my dad I want to talk tonight. If the conversation goes well, I'll make the company bigger than before.
That's great. You can definitely do it, Erica. True to my words, her entertainment agency improved its performance in just over a year. It became one of the top agencies in the country in terms of the number of talented artists and actors. I heard they're planning to expand overseas soon. All of this happened after the change in presidency. And then I had the chance to talk with her. Then I had the opportunity to talk to her again. Now we are business partners.
I need help from your company and your own help. If I try to go down the wrong path, will you stop me?
Erica was more vibrant than ever. She wasn't as dressed up as before, but she looked far more attractive now. A business partnership between a movie company and an entertainment agency. It isn't unusual nowadays, and it would benefit us to leverage the actors in Erica's agency.
With her as she is now, I want to work together.
Aaron agreed. Both Erica and I shed our pretenses and status. Who's superior, who's competent, who has money. We discarded such useless scales. I used to dislike her, but knowing her vulnerabilities allowed me to reflect on my own life. I believe she's also walking a better path in life since our reunion. We can't live alone. If you say that it's okay to be alone, you'll only get a biased view.
Having someone to scold, encourage, and guide you is the most valuable asset.
Erica sometimes says, if I could be the reason she feels this way, nothing could make me happier. For her sake, and for Aaron, who trusts and keeps me by his side, I want to remain sincere and humble.
Excuse me, have you ever heard of wire transfer scams?
The face of the bank employee was stern. He seemed concerned about me, an elderly man who wanted to withdraw a large sum of money, suspecting it might be a scam. While I appreciated his sense of justice, it put me in a bit of a bind. No matter how much I deny that it is not a scam because I need that money for work, he never listens to me. Finally, he said, "I'm terribly sorry, sir, but as of today, due to the manager's decision, our senior customers cannot use our services." He was clearly prejudiced against seniors, assuming they're all susceptible to scams. My wife silently observed his behavior from the side. Having reached the end of her patience, she began to laugh mischievously.
Hey, could you get in touch with the manager?
My name is John Smith. I'm 66 years old. I retired a few years ago and now live in New York City with my wife, Linda. Since retiring, I've been enjoying my second life. I stay busy with community volunteer work, such as helping ensure the safety of elementary school children in traffic, and sometimes managing the reception at local events. I'm also registered with a senior employment agency, so when I have time, I do some simple tasks. My days are fairly enjoyable.
Well, I'm off then.
Take care. My wife Linda, wearing a light pink jacket, left the house. Linda is a career woman, still working very energetically. Despite her busy schedule, she seems content with her fulfilling life. I can always tell how much she enjoys her work through her conversations. Recently, I've been looking forward to hearing about her work during dinner or on weekends. With my busy wife, I've taken on the household chores. Since I didn't have much opportunity to do it while I was working, I often failed at household chores like cooking, laundry, and cleaning at first. Initially, I really came to appreciate what homemakers do. By the way, we have a son and a daughter. Thankfully, both have their own families and have been blessed with children, so I have happily become a grandfather. Though our children are living a bit away from us, they often visit us with our grandchildren, not just during holidays. Spending ample time with my adorable grandkids, who run up to me saying "Grandpa," is always a healing experience. I've also taken up a new hobby recently. With plenty of time on my hands, I've started a small vegetable garden in our backyard. This home gardening is surprisingly productive. The satisfaction of harvesting what I've grown is immensely gratifying. But there's one issue. We often harvest more than we can eat, just the two of us. What should we do? For now, I'm thinking of trying to make some dried vegetables this week. Hopefully, it works out. We, both financially and time-wise comfortable, live happily doing the things we love. One day, we needed to go to the bank, so we decided to head out together. The closest branch was just a 10-minute walk from our house, so we decided to take a stroll there together. After walking for a few minutes, we could see the bank, but it seemed somewhat dim. As we got closer to the entrance, we realized it was closed off with shutters. Apparently, they were undergoing renovations. So, unfortunately, the bank was closed that day.
Oh dear, it's closed.
Linda said, looking up at the notice. Seems like it, but we need to go today. No choice but to head to the next town over.
Yes, I guess we have no choice.
Let's eat out while we're at it. It's good to have days like this once in a while. Just the two of us. We set off for another branch we usually don't visit, planning to dine out along the way. The bank at the other branch was extremely busy, probably because the nearby branch was closed. The staff at the counters all looked very busy. Wow, it's really crowded here.
Yes, let's get a ticket number.
We approached a machine near a seemingly new bank employee. "Excuse me," I said, reaching for a ticket.
Hello, what brings you here today?
The bank employee asked before I could take a number. His name tag says Williams. "We're here to make a withdrawal."
If that's the case, you can use the ATM, please.
Williams said, politely suggesting the ATM. However, the amount we needed to withdraw was more than what the ATM could handle. I decided to explain this to Williams. "We need a significant amount, so we'll need to go through the teller, please." Williams's expression changed upon hearing my words.
Sir, do you really need this money today? Excuse me for asking, but are you aware of wire transfer fraud?
Williams asked with a stern face. He must have been concerned, I thought. Being a bank employee, he must have said this out of a sense of justice. Appreciating his kind consideration, I told him, "It's for work, so it's not a scam." However, Williams was not convinced.
Why don't you reconsider? Is there any mistake?
Eventually, he said, "I can't believe an elderly person would need such a large amount of money." He was clearly suspecting wire transfer fraud. No matter what I said, he stubbornly refused to serve us. But what to do? We had our reasons too. After all, We genuinely needed the money for a legitimate reason. We couldn't back down, especially since we had traveled to this place for that purpose. After a frustrating back and forth, realizing that we were not going to give up, Williams let out a heavy sigh. Then he said something completely unexpected.
I'm terribly sorry, but as of now, due to the manager's decision, our senior customers cannot be served.
Incredibly, he was trying to force us out on a whim. I and Linda exchanged shocked looks. Behind us, other customers were lined up, forming a small queue, and of course, among them were some elderly people. Everyone looked a bit anxious. Once again, I asked him, "What is that all about?" Williams firmly repeated, "Elderly customers are not allowed to use our services." His attitude, which I had initially perceived as just, had become oppressive. Seeing this, Linda suddenly let out a sinister laugh. This was not good. Not good at all. William looked at my wife questioningly, but I held my head in despair. Because I knew that my wife laughs like this only when she is really angry. Thinking it was futile to argue with Williams, she spoke to another bank employee.
Hey, you there, the one with the pink tie. Can I have a word with you? Could you please contact the manager? Ask him to come to the president's office.
The bank employee my wife called over was wearing a pink tie. It was clear that he was quite senior and held some sort of position. He surveyed the interior of the store with a strict posture. Seeing Linda, his face turned pale. He exclaimed, "Understood, President, Mrs. Smith."
The president.
That lady is the president.
His sudden exclamation and action caused a stir among those present. The busy bank went silent for a moment, and all eyes were on us. In fact, Linda is the president of this major bank. Though it was her day off, we had some business at the bank. Unfortunately, our local branch was closed. We decided to visit this one, partly for inspection. Williams, realizing the situation from his superior's attitude and words, had turned from pale to ashen.
I'm terribly sorry. I deeply apologize for my disrespectful behavior.
The branch manager desperately apologizes to us in the president's office.
Williams, you apologize too.
The branch manager had William apologize to us as well. It had turned into quite a situation. Standing next to my explosively angry wife, I watched the manager and Williams. They looked uncomfortable. I have only seen their frowns since we entered this room.
Why did you behave in such a manner?
Linda asked in a calm, presidential manner. Williams, prompted by a glance from the manager, answered,
It's because of the prevalence of wire transfer fraud. We were trained to be cautious when elderly customers handle large sums of money.
Of course, that's very important.
She acknowledged his point, but noted it was somewhat excessive.
We are requesting a withdrawal for a legitimate reason.
Yes.
It's important to make judgments without preconceptions. Sometimes, it's crucial to listen to others' opinions.
William nodded his head, unable to speak. He was the youngest staff member at this branch. Perhaps that's why he became so flustered. But what was he in a hurry for? Curious, I asked him. He replied, I wanted to take credit for it.
I consulted others thinking they might take the credit.
Credit.
Well, if I prevent a fraud, I get praised and maybe even rewarded, right?
He said so with an innocent smile. Everyone was taken aback. No one expected such a reason behind his eagerness. It was a surprising response that seemed to deflate the tension. My dear, you can cause discomfort to customers just to satisfy your vanity or self-fulfillment. Even if you suspect fraud, you need to explain it without making the customer uncomfortable. You were too forceful, Linda explained. Still, Williams seemed somewhat unconvinced. However, this incident turned out to be a fortunate case because the victim was us. If it had been another elderly person, it could have led to significant damage.
Many of the elderly customers who use our branch bank are wealthy. Isn't that right, manager?
When Linda asked the manager, he vigorously nodded his head in agreement.
Do you realize the extent of the damage if they felt slighted and shifted their transactions? The bank could face a loss big enough to shut down.
With this explanation, Williams seemed to finally understand. He looked regretful as he realized the mistake of his actions. Linda nodded quietly in response. Then, Linda said, "This isn't just about him. We need to re-educate all the staff," and she stood up to leave. Understood. I'm very sorry, the manager replied, looking slightly better than before. It seemed resolved. Phew, what an ordeal. Now, to finish our business and grab a meal. Just as I was thinking this. At that moment, I believed that everything had been resolved. The four of us left the president's office. We headed back into the bank to complete our original transaction.
Shall we proceed with your withdrawal then?
The manager asked, personally attending to us. Williams was watching him closely, eager to learn the correct approach. Yes, please. I was about to respond when suddenly, bang! A loud noise echoed through the bank. We quickly looked towards the source of the sound and saw three individuals wearing ski masks. One of them was pointing a gun at the ceiling. The sound from earlier might have been caused by this gunshot. Then, one of them started threatening a female bank employee. "Give us the money." In his hand, he was holding a survival knife.
Ah!
The manager was so frightened that he screamed and collapsed on the spot. Williams, standing next to him, had turned deathly pale, frozen in place. What is this? A robbery? Despite the obviously alarming situation, I tried to stay as calm as possible. I glanced again at the ceiling where the supposed shot was fired. Curiously, the ceiling remained in pristine condition. I see, so that's what it was. It's a bluff, I realized. The gun must be a toy. There's no hole in the ceiling, I whispered to Linda. She nodded slightly after looking up.
Hey, don't resist or I'll shoot. Do as you're told. Put down your phones and gather here.
Employees and customers were herded together. They took away our cell phones, our means of communication.
He's the manager of this bank.
Criminal leader bellowed in a commanding voice. Hearing this, the manager let out another whimper. Such a blatant reaction was only going to give away his position and earn the robber's disdain. Sure enough, the robber approached the manager and ordered, "Stuff the money in the bag." The manager, trembling with fear, hesitantly followed the instructions.
Don't even think about calling the cops.
The robber shouted, causing the manager to drop the money and stumble in fear. He must be feeling pressured, as the task is not progressing smoothly. The manager's body was covered in oily sweat. Just as the irate robber was about to yell at the manager again. I can see that the sound was small, but the sound of the police car siren can be heard. And that sound was indeed getting louder as it approached us.
You the hell called them?
Bro, we gotta deal with this. They're coming.
Realizing the police had been alerted, the robbers started to panic.
Damn it. Change of plans. Close all doors and windows. Hey you, lower the shutter.
They ordered the manager. The manager pressed the lock button with a trembling hand. They decided to barricade themselves in the bank. I quickly surveyed the hostages. There were a few elderly individuals, some young women, and a child of about 2 years old. There were no strong young men.
Arrange a getaway vehicle.
One robber gave orders to the police using a megaphone. But the police weren't going to easily comply with such demands. Careful not to harm the hostages, the police began negotiating with them to release the hostages first. In the midst of this, the negotiations were becoming increasingly difficult. Both sides were making demands that neither wanted to concede.
Mommy, I want to go home.
The 4-year-old girl started crying. She had been quiet for a while, enduring hunger and fear. However, the 2-year-old girl had finally reached her limit. The criminal leader shouted, "Hey, shut that kid up," and approached the mother and daughter. And then, he pointed his gun at the mother and daughter. While it was just a toy gun, it must have been quite frightening for anyone who didn't know that. The mother, completely terrified, hugged her child protectively and apologized. However, this child was only 2 years old. Even though her mother tried to comfort her, she couldn't stop crying. Damn it! The criminal glared at the mother and daughter with intensity.
I'm sorry.
The mother said so, and at that moment, an elderly woman approached the child. The woman made eye contact with the little girl and spoke to her gently.
Oh dear, it's all right.
She took out gloves from the pocket of her apron. When the woman spoke to her, the little girl stopped crying for a moment. In the meantime, the elderly woman turned the gloves into a puppet to capture the child's interest.
Hello. What's your name? How old are you? You're cute.
The puppet moved its fingers, mimicking speech. The girl, intrigued by this, stopped crying and started smiling. The elderly woman continued to engage with the child, who now seemed cheerful. Then the little girl started touching the glove puppet with a smile on her face. The woman gave the glove puppet to the girl, who then used it as a toy, pulling on it and putting her fingers inside. Instead of crying, she appeared to be in a much better mood. Seeing this, the elderly woman said, "I used to be a child care worker. You know, I love children. You're such a cutie." She spoke to the mother with a warm smile. The mother lowered her head with a relieved expression. Then, another elderly woman began comforting the mother, gently patting her back.
Are you pregnant, dear? Are you okay?
The elderly woman asked, and the mother nodded slightly. How did she know, I wonder? At first glance, her belly didn't appear swollen, and you couldn't tell she was pregnant just by looking. However, there was a maternity mark on the bag she was carrying over her shoulder. The woman noticed the mark and spoke to the mother. The elderly women surrounded the mother and child, protecting them.
Doing this here. All that stress is bad for your baby.
The elderly women murmured so, directing silent condemnation towards the criminals. The other customers joined in, giving the criminals cold glares. The robbers seemed to have their conscience pricked by that silent accusation, their eyes swimming. I looked around. Is there anything that can break this situation? Then I noticed a cane that someone had brought. This might be useful. I gently tapped the shoulder of an elderly man who was nearby. When the elderly man turned towards us, tilting his head slightly in our direction, I discreetly pointed to the cane, trying not to be noticed by the criminals. Seeing my gesture, the man nodded slightly, acknowledging the cue. The other elderly person beside him also did the same, giving us a knowing look. As the situation became clearer to him, the elderly man smiled and nodded in our direction. At that moment, my wife, Linda, suddenly stood up, taking everyone by surprise.
What's going on, old lady?
The criminal leader shouted in response to her sudden action. Undeterred by their intimidating demeanor, Linda stepped forward and addressed the criminals with confidence.
I am the president of this bank.
She declared loudly, holding out her business card for them to see. She maintained a poised posture.
Isn't just me as a hostage enough?
Don't speak out of turn. Shut up.
The criminal snapped defiantly, raising his voice. Linda, undeterred by the criminal's outburst, continued speaking.
Please release the other people. There are children and pregnant women here. Some people aren't feeling well. If we get hurt, or if something worse happens, your crimes will become even more severe.
Nick.
The criminal was left speechless by Linda's reasonable argument.
Boss, what should we do?
The minions asked so, turning their gazes towards the leader. The leader appeared visibly shaken, contemplating the best course of action.
If we use this old lady as a hostage.
But if the police come in while we're releasing her?
The charges will be even more severe.
The minions each voiced their own thoughts as they spoke freely. The chaos on the side of the criminals became increasingly noticeable as they observed the hostages in silence. However, it was the leader of the robbers who ultimately silenced them with a stern command. Quiet, he shouted at his minions. And the room fell silent in response to this forceful tone.
Listen up. If we don't get caught, none of these charges matter.
While it was a reckless perspective, the leader's strong words seemed to unite his henchmen's thoughts, and their chaotic discussions began to converge. This was our chance. This was our chance. The elderly man with the cane and I seized the moment, moving quietly behind the criminals.
What?
The leader was surprised by the sudden action. I didn't hesitate and swiftly twisted the arm of the leader.
Ouch.
I added more pressure, causing the wincing criminal even more pain. With my full body weight, I held him down. This rendered the man unable to move anymore. The other elderly man with the cane efficiently disarmed the remaining criminals by striking their weapons with his cane. Another elderly man executed a judo throw. The criminals, now disorganized, were struggling to respond. Our roles as hostages and the criminals' positions were completely reversed. We thus succeeded in restraining the criminals. Almost simultaneously, police officers stormed into the bank.
Over here. The criminals are right here.
During our scuffle with the criminals, It seemed someone had quietly facilitated contact with the police. The elderly woman who had been a hostage appeared, guiding the police. As soon as the police entered, I released the restraints on the criminals and handed them over to the police. Everyone was apprehended safely. Thank goodness no one was injured. As I took a breath and relaxed, my eyes met with the police officer who was in charge of the scene. Spotting me, he hurriedly approached.
Thank you for your cooperation, John. You really helped us out here.
The approaching police officer gave me a courtesy salute. A natural smile spread across my face when I recognized that familiar face. And there was a reason for it, as he used to be my direct subordinate. To be precise, he might be better described as a former subordinate. This officer had been one of my most trusted subordinates during my time in the force. As I briefly explained the events to the police officer, the bank employee Williams rushed over. "John, you are an amazing person. I deeply regret my rude behavior," he said. His fast-paced speech and sparkling eyes conveyed his genuine admiration. No, it was the bravery of everyone here that made the difference.
Indeed, everyone here is amazing. I was so impressed by everyone. I couldn't do anything myself.
Williams said so, looking somewhat downcast. I chuckled as I watched his expression.
The people in this community are really energetic. Even the elderly folks are full of vitality, which makes it reassuring for the police.
It was true that the people in this area were energetic. 2 individuals who helped me subdue the criminals were martial arts instructors, one in kendo and the other in judo. After retiring, they had dedicated their time to volunteering for crime prevention workshops and patrolling the area. Physically, they were no less fit than young adults. As for my wife, she had self-defense training. And she was confident that she would be all right even if the criminals attacked her. I was slightly concerned about her level of confidence, given that she was my wife, but it was undeniable that she was a strong and capable woman. She held the position of bank president, carrying significant mental and physical responsibilities.
Oh, by the way,
the police officer said so, as if he remembered something.
Oh, by the way, that person, the manager, is quite competent as well. After swiftly contacting the police, he pretended to be frightened and delayed the criminals. Thanks to him, we were able to arrive at the scene before any casualties occurred.
I couldn't help but admire the manager's quick thinking. Despite always appearing frightened with a shaky voice, he was a clever strategist. I thought that he was a brilliant man.
It seems like everyone at the bank is well trained. That's why you can respond so quickly in these situations. It's impressive for a company.
The police officer smiled quietly as he spoke. When the bank was praised, I was happy because I felt as if Linda, the president, had been honored. I looked at the elderly people in this town and thought of certain individuals, my grandparents. Both of them are old and frail now. That's why I feel a strong urge to protect the elderly, just like I should protect my grandparents. Even with online scams, I strongly desired to prevent them before they happened. But today, I witnessed an astonishing reality. All of these people were incredibly lively, and it turned out that I, who was almost overwhelmed, was the one being protected. The fact of the fraud and the reality that nothing had happened to me, I felt a kind of shock. Seeing me in that state, John started talking to me. I do want to stay healthy for as long as possible, but we never know what the future holds. I was about to say that's not true, I thought to myself, but John's expression was quite serious. Unfortunately, that's the reality. Tomorrow, we might be confined to our beds. So, while we can, we want to think and act as much as possible.
I see.
Your desire to protect is admirable and makes me happy. But don't judge elderly people solely based on their age. Of course, some people genuinely need help, so it's best to offer assistance after getting to know each individual and understanding their situation. Listening to that, I realize that even among the elderly, there are various types of people. It might be wrong to assume they all need protection because they are considered weak. Also, just as there are active elderly people, some young individuals might be pregnant or have young children to care for, and there are many people with invisible illnesses and conditions. I had overlooked these facts. It was like scales falling from my eyes. He muttered to himself, being kind and gentle to everyone, not just the elderly. It felt like those words had become a motto that infiltrated my mind. It gave me a new goal and a surge of motivation. Williams had regained his natural sparkle in his eyes. With everything settled, the criminals were apprehended by the police. Now, I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Today, we had been truly challenging. I fought this as I patted my shoulder. I had remembered the real reason I came here. I still hadn't deposited the money. Actually, my eldest daughter had just built a new house recently. In addition to that, my eldest son's wife had given birth. There were also celebrations for my grandchildren starting school. We needed money in quick succession.
It seems like celebrations require cash, after all.
My wife, standing beside me, also had a troubled expression. Then the bank manager appeared, straightening his wrinkled suit. He smiled kindly and said, "I'm sorry for the delay, but I'm here to assist you." After successfully celebrating our children and grandchildren, our life as a couple returned to peace. It was springtime. The weather had been warming up here lately, making it perfect for planting vegetable seedlings. Tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants. It was ideal for planting vegetables. However, I had a failed experience last year. I had miscalculated the amount I needed to plant, resulting in a surplus of cucumbers. We ended up using them even in miso soup. This year, I needed to be more careful to avoid such a situation. But well, if I still had excess, I could pack them in bags and sell them as $1 vegetables. That also sounded fun. However, since I was controlling the planting amount this way, there might be some extra space in the garden. If there was room, I wanted to plant sunflower seeds, which my wife liked. She would surely be delighted. I started planning a bit ahead for the upcoming days. As I did, I became more and more excited about the summer to come. My cell phone made a lively sound on the desk. It was the notification sound for someone liking my recent post. Lately, I have been hooked on sharing updates about my garden on social media. The person who liked it was one of my elderly neighbors. Just like me, they enjoyed trying new things and had a curious spirit. They spent their days discovering new things and enjoying their retirement. I wanted to be like them. Even as I got older, I wanted to stay active. I wanted to contribute within my capabilities and continue to help others. I'm still very much in the game. I have plenty of dreams, hopes, and excitement. I plan to live my second life beautifully, hand in hand with my family and the people in my community. For that reason, I'll give it my all today, just like always.
None of these guys graduated from prestigious universities.
An employee of this company mocked several job candidates while looking at their resumes. Moreover, he repeatedly boasted with great pride about graduating from Stanford University. And there he was, continually posing questions no one could know the answer to, yet I kept providing correct answers one after another. Perhaps frustrated by this, he began to impose even more unreasonable demands on me.
Solve this, and I'll hire you for a $3 million annual salary,
he said, and handed me a math problem scribbled on a printer paper. As I stared down the equation, he watched me with a smirk. He probably thought I couldn't solve it due to my low education. But I just smiled back at him and added, "You'd better prepare $3 million right now." He had no idea what that smile meant or what fate awaited him. My name is John Smith. I was born and raised as an ordinary person. My athletic ability is average, and my academic performance was middling. However, there has always been one thing I've been confident about since childhood.
Your total is $34.52.
Growing up, my family ran a small store, and I often helped my grandma with it.
Whoops, I don't have any smaller bills.
A regular customer said, looking apologetic as he handed over a $100 bill. I take it and give the change back immediately.
No problem. Here's a 50, and then 60.
Give him a $50 bill and a $10 bill. I handed him the remaining $5.48 in coins and the receipt.
Well, that's impressive, John. Don't you need a calculator?
Since the payment system is outdated, there are no cash registers like those in supermarkets or convenience stores. Calculating change must be done with a calculator or, alternatively, no, I can do it in my head, by mental math.
You're still in 3rd grade, right?
Yo.
That's admirable. I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll do in the future.
Initially, I followed my grandma's example and used a calculator. But I found pressing the buttons a bit cumbersome and gradually started to think that calculating on my own was faster, especially when it was busy. Since then, I've been giving change using mental arithmetic. When I started practicing in the 2nd grade, I often made mistakes and was corrected. However, nearly a year later, my speed and accuracy have significantly improved. It was something I started to improve efficiency at the checkout, but looking back, I think I continued because I was happy to be praised. Well, that aside, this ability to calculate was the only thing I could be truly confident in. I wouldn't say I was always confident, but I've always been very curious. Whenever I didn't understand something, I would immediately ask my family or teachers and pursue the answer.
Hey, Mom.
What's up?
Why is the sky blue at noon, but orange in the morning and evening?
You ask the tough questions.
If it was something simple, she would tell me right away, and if it was something even my parents didn't know, they would go out of their way to look it up and teach me. I was always asking why and was often teased as the why kid. Thanks to my habit of learning trivia that seemed beyond my years, my classmates at school would call me a Dr. Know-All. Like why the color of the sky changes depending on the time of day, or why the South Pole is colder than the North Pole. or that the appearance and color of dinosaurs in encyclopedias might not be accurate, or that the outcomes of dice rolls aren't evenly distributed. Even then, I was somewhat proud that none of my classmates knew such things. By the time I got to middle school, I found all subjects fascinating and couldn't get enough of studying. I loved to study. In my English class, I was fascinated by the literary works of a great man, so I got a paperback copy of that man apart from the class and read it thoroughly. Studying science made the phenomena around me seem interesting, and I reached for creature encyclopedias, scientific magazines, and even international research papers. As a result, I became good at English class. Social studies were interesting too. How the country of the US operates, what makes it different from other countries, who existed in the past, what they thought, what events happened, how we arrived at the present world. Indeed, I continued to study, driven by my curiosity. Among the main 5 subjects, mathematics, in particular, captivated me the most. There are 2 reasons I can think of. One is the universality of mathematics. What is proven correct is basically always correct. It's rare to have exceptions like in science, and it doesn't have the ambiguity of human emotions like history or English. It's beauty. The other reason is simply that I was good at calculations. I've been helping out at the store for over 6 years now. I still do all the change calculations in my head, and thanks to that, I've acquired a reasonably high computational ability. In my second year of middle school, the homeroom teacher for my class was in charge of mathematics. Mr. Robert Brown was acting as a temporary teacher and homeroom teacher in place of the regular math teacher who was on maternity leave. He was 25 years old. In my school, where most of the teachers were older, Mr. Brown was the youngest. "Mr. Brown, I can't figure out this problem. If you have time, could you please explain it to me?"
Let's see. Oh, this is surprising.
The textbook I brought wasn't the one we use in school. If it were that level, I wouldn't need to bother asking the teacher.
I never thought an 8th grade student would bring a past assignment from Stanford University.
Mr. Brown's face was a mix of astonishment and delight, clearly enjoying the surprise. After all, this teacher is an extreme math enthusiast. He's a bit unusual, but I respect him, including those quirks. Whether it's in the morning or after school, he always welcomes my questions. Mr. Brown didn't just teach me the problems, he also recommended problem books. They weren't just difficult, they were interesting, beautiful problems. A collection that seemed to encapsulate the joy of mathematics. One day after school, I went to Mr. Brown again. I had completed a full round of the problem book he recommended. "Mr. Brown, I finished the whole book."
Oh, well done. Was it too easy for you, John?
His eyes were shining. It was clear he was happy to have someone to share his passion for math with. At some point, Mr. Brown and I had become more like math enthusiast friends than student and teacher. Of course, there's a propriety even in close relationships, and he's still my teacher. I kept a respectful distance. No, it was quite challenging. The problems were excellent, and I really enjoyed them.
That's great to hear. Then, I'll give you some homework.
Mr. Brown smiled, pulled out a sheet of paper from a clear file, and started writing with a black ballpoint pen he took from his breast pocket. I watched eagerly, wondering what kind of problem it would be, and saw this written on the paper. Create a math problem that even Robert Brown can solve. I was stunned by the assignment. He continued,
You're already at a sufficient level when it comes to solving problems. That's why I want you to try looking at it from a different perspective.
A different perspective. According to the teacher, there's a view you can see just by solving problems. He said that there's an unseen beauty in mathematics, and he wants me to discover it. I'll give it a try.
I'm looking forward to it.
I took the paper with the homework assignment and went home for the day. The next day, I quickly set to work creating a problem and presented it to Mr. Brown. However, he solved it as easily as if twisting a baby's arm, in no time at all.
It's a beautiful problem. I can really feel how much you love mathematics.
Putting his pen back in his breast pocket, the teacher continued.
But in sticking to beauty, the difficulty has been sacrificed.
Indeed, the difficulty wasn't high. Just as the teacher said, it seemed I was too focused on creating a beautiful equation and solution.
All right, bring me another masterpiece when you've made one. I'll always be waiting.
Yes. The day after that, I made another problem, thinking, this time for sure, and took it to the teacher with high hopes. The second problem took longer to answer than the first. Though he ultimately solved it, I thought it was an improvement over yesterday. Feeling proud, I listened eagerly for his feedback.
It was indeed a difficult problem. It took me longer than I thought. But what did you think when you looked back at your own problem?
Well, I immediately understood what Mr. Brown meant. I had been thinking the same thing while creating it. It's messy, isn't it?
Well, to put it negatively, yes. This time, you focused too much on the difficulty. It can't be called a good problem.
To create a problem that Mr. Brown would groan at, it needed to have not only the highest level of difficulty, but also the highest level of beauty. From then on, I continued to try over and over again. A beauty surpassing the first problem and a difficulty surpassing the second. Striving for both, another month had passed. It was my 22nd attempt at creating a problem.
Well, this is...
It's 10 minutes after facing the problem. As the outside scenery began to darken, Mr. Brown's calculating hands came to a halt. His usual ballpoint pen spun lightly atop his hand.
Not bad, John.
Eh.
Man, I'm stumped. I can solve this problem.
He declared defeat, but it took me a few seconds to comprehend his words. Once I grasped the situation, emotions flooded over me. Really?
Yes, it's incredibly difficult. No matter which angle I approach it from, I don't feel any closer to the solution. Yet, the question is remarkably concise. I think it's a fantastic problem, as good as it gets.
I did it. I couldn't help but clench my fist and strike a triumphant pose. Normally, I was the quiet one in the corner, but this time, I made quite the commotion. That's how much I was driven to outdo the teacher. Even after going home, eating dinner, and taking a shower, my excitement didn't fade. Lying in bed, trying to close my eyes, my thoughts kept swirling around and around. Eventually, I fell asleep as if knocked out, but needless to say, I was exhausted the next day from lack of sleep. Months passed since that event. My love for mathematics grew even more, and I finally started tackling the Millennium Prize problems. Solving any of them would yield a prize of $1 million. My competitors were genius mathematicians from all around the world. Needless to say, it wasn't easy, and I found myself going back and forth between the staff room and the library every day. Sometimes, I worked so hard that I got dark circles under my eyes from lack of sleep. Seeing my condition, Mr. Brown made a proposal. Am I trying to for the International Mathematical Olympiad?
Yes, the registration is starting soon. I'd really like you to participate, John. It could be a good change of pace for you, right?
Indeed, it seemed like it would be a good refreshment. Plus, I was curious to see how far my abilities would hold up on a global scale. All right, I'll give it a try.
That's the spirit. Leave the arrangements to me.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate it. And so, I found myself participating in the Mathematical Olympiad, almost as if I was pulled into it by the hand. I never imagined I would win a gold medal at an international competition. Realizing I could compete on a global scale boosted my confidence in my mathematical abilities. Even though I became known as the odd one out, that confidence told me, what others think doesn't matter. I love mathematics. Thus, I always continue to look at formulas. Those moments were truly happy for me. By the time I was in my third year of middle school, my surroundings had changed drastically. I had to say goodbye to Mr. Brown, who had finished his substitute teaching while another teacher was on maternity leave. To make matters worse, the family business couldn't sustain itself any longer, and we were forced to close the shop. My grandma began showing signs of dementia and had to be placed in a facility. Under such stress, my dad fell ill and passed away shortly after. Being an only child, it was just my mom and me left. We had to sell the building we used both as a home and a shop, and move to a more affordable area far away. The onslaught of despair felt like a bad dream. At my new school, I was the odd one out and spent a lonely year. During that time, memories of Mr. Brown and mathematics were my only solace. Nearly 3 years later, as my high school life was coming to an end, it was time to make serious decisions about my future. I was confident I could get into a decent university if I continued as I was. However, Mom, I've decided not to go to college and start working instead. I brought this up to my mom as we were discussing my future path.
What are you talking about, John? You've always said you wanted to go to college.
That's true, but I can't let you bear all the burden. After closing the shop and losing my dad, my mom had raised me on her own. It had been 4 years since our lives had changed. Going to college would mean needing more money and time.
You shouldn't worry about that. It's your life, John. You should do what you want to do.
But if I do that,
the biggest tragedy would be for my son to feel restricted because of our situation. I want you to be free to spread your wings without being defined by anyone else.
Mom. Hearing those words, I couldn't help but cry. With the utmost gratitude, I chose to pursue further education. And now, my college life is coming to an end without any delays. I will be able to graduate in 4 years. While working on my thesis, I also focused on job hunting. Even though my mom told me not to worry about home, I looked for jobs nearby so I wouldn't have to move away from home. The cost of my grandma's care facility and the unpredictability of my mom's situation worried me. After registering my profile on a job hunting online system, I quickly received an invitation for an interview. The job was in the IT industry, and the workplace was less than an hour from home. Considering it a good opportunity, I decided to apply. All right, I'm off.
Okay, take care.
I checked my appearance in the entrance mirror one last time. With determination in my heart, I left the house, my unfamiliar leather shoes clacking against the ground. My mom watched me go with a tender look in her eyes. In response, I too offered a smile. Entering the venue with nerves tingling, I received instructions from a staff member. After waiting at the designated spot, my name, along with a few others, was called. I replied with a bright voice as instructed and followed to the interview room. Upon entering as instructed, I faced 2 interviewers, a man and a woman. The man was thin and tall, wearing glasses. I imagined him to be a nervous man. Both appeared to be around 30 years old. After being prompted to sit, I did so with a polite "excuse me." The male interviewer began.
I'll be handling today's session. My name is William.
Following his introduction, the female interviewer also introduced herself, and we all exchanged greetings. We, the job seekers, handed our resumes to William. He glanced over them, his glasses catching the light. After about a minute, he spoke up.
None of these guys graduated from prestigious universities.
We were taken aback by his words, sitting in stunned silence. The female interviewer seemed flustered, looking down. However, William, undisturbed, sneered and continued.
You see, I graduated from Stanford University. I don't really need anyone less capable than myself.
A clear case of academic elitism.
Now the question for you, Chun.
Yes.
What is the smallest number divisible by all integers from 1 to 10?
The question caught me off guard. I was expecting something about introductions or self-promotion.
Don't know. Well, I guess with your educational background, you wouldn't.
After high school, I attended a local university. The reason was the same as the reason for getting a job nearby. As a result, my alma mater was considered average at best. The answer is 2,520.
All right.
He likely wanted to assert his superiority through academic or knowledge-based challenges, but the question was about mathematics. I answered as calmly as I could.
Well then, what plant did the early Japanese mythology use to drive away evil spirits?
What's with this guy? That was my only thought. Perhaps frustrated by having his math-related trivia immediately answered, he now resorted to completely unrelated topics. Unfortunately for him, being called as Dr. Noel in my childhood, regardless of the field, that is peach, I answered immediately again, and William's frustration was evident. He continued with several more irrelevant questions. However, I kept providing the correct answers one after another. Perhaps feeling aggrieved by this, he pushed further.
Then solve this.
Frustrated that he couldn't boast as he wanted, William scribbled something on the back of a document.
Here, take this.
He tossed a paper in my direction in a careless manner. It was a math word problem, written in his messy handwriting that seemed to leak his irritation. This is...
Huh? Can't solve it, can you? I thought so.
As soon as he saw my displeased expression, William's mood seemed to slightly improve. Clearly, he just wanted to assert dominance.
If you solve this, I'll hire you with an annual salary of $3 million.
He watched me, smirking, as I stared at the equation. He probably thought there was no way I could solve it. But I returned his smile. Yes, it was indeed a difficult problem. I might not have been able to solve it upon first glance. If it was my first time seeing it, that is. I've solved it. Please remember your promise of $3 million. I wrote down the answer within minutes and handed it back to the interviewer.
What?
He looked at me incredulously, his voice losing its confidence.
Don't try to bluff your way through.
Please grade it. William's hands trembled as he held the paper, scrutinizing my answer. No matter how much time passed, he couldn't declare it right or wrong.
What a shame. Wrong.
Do you know the answer?
What?
This problem. I returned the pen to my chest pocket while looking him in the eye. The reason I could smoothly solve such a difficult question. I said to him like this. I created this problem when I was in middle school.
Is that?
Why do you know a problem that only my teacher and I should be aware of? At that question, his face turned red, and he began to tremble again. Just then, the door to the interview room opened, and a man entered. Though his presence had changed, he was a familiar face. I was surprised, but William seemed even more shocked.
President.
Is he, President? The man who had just entered was my mentor. The person who had inspired my deep dive into mathematics, Mr. Brown. William called him the president, which doubled my surprise. I had researched the company beforehand, and if Mr. Brown was the president, I would have noticed. Mr. Brown, it's been a long time.
John, it has indeed been a while.
After leaving his position as a temporary middle school teacher, Mr. Brown joined this IT company. Due to his exceptional skills, he quickly climbed the ranks, and he had recently been appointed as the new president. The materials I had received and the website I had checked were apparently not yet updated with the latest information. William knew about that problem because Mr. Brown had mentioned it during a casual conversation.
By the way, William, I overheard a bit. Our trivia about mathematics and Japanese mythology written in the interview manual.
Well.
They're not, are they? Why did you do such a thing?
I wanted to recruit talented individuals. I thought these candidates weren't qualified based on their educational backgrounds.
Hearing his explanation, Mr. Brown nodded in understanding.
Individuals like John here prove that talent isn't tied to academic background. Graduating from a famous university doesn't necessarily make someone commendable.
After a pause, Mr. Brown took a deep breath and continued.
I'm referring to you, William.
Nick.
Subdued by the president's reprimand, William became noticeably quieter.
I apologize for the inconvenience caused to you all.
While apologizing, Mr. Brown glanced over the resumes of the job candidates.
What impressive backgrounds. You've all passed the first interview. I can promise a salary of $3 million, but I encourage you to take the second test.
A few days later, I received an invitation to the second round. Despite my concerns about encountering someone like William again, the prospect of working under Mr. Brown motivated me to aim for an offer. I successfully completed all the stages of the exam, including the third round. The last was the interview with the president, which ended with a conversation with Mr. Brown. I accepted the job offer without hesitation. As expected from an IT company, many of the employees, including the president, were young. Starting as a newcomer, I was initially tasked with data aggregation and analysis. My mathematical skills proved to be very useful, making my work enjoyable and productive. Although I rarely saw William due to being in different departments, we occasionally crossed paths in the hallway. I felt awkward at first, but then I got used to it because he just stared at me resentfully. And now I hardly gave it a second thought when he glared at me. 2 years my senior, Peter White remarked, William's a tall and scary, but having seen his deflated state during the interview, I couldn't feel intimidated by him at all. Sometime after joining the company, we received a project to present to a large corporation. It was a project to create their new system. Delighted, I was chosen as a member of the project team despite being a newcomer. Peter from my department and, surprisingly, William from another department were also selected.
Ugh, seriously.
Hearing about William's involvement, my senior openly expressed his dismay. Don't worry, Peter. It'll be fine.
Then you're in charge of dealing with him.
Dealing with him? I replied half-jokingly, though Peter seemed quite serious. Great, as if I needed more on my plate. The day before the presentation, I arrived at the office a bit later than usual, but not late enough to cause concern. Rushing in, I greeted everyone. Good morning.
John, we're in big trouble.
Peter looked panicked. Looking around, I noticed the other project members, especially, seemed distraught. What happened?
The data for tomorrow's presentation and the system we created are gone.
What? I momentarily wondered if this was a joke or some sort of prank. Was this some kind of punishment for being slightly late? But it appeared to be a real crisis. Did we have backups?
We checked, but those were deleted too.
Seriously, what about the USB in the safe? Even if it's not the latest, it's better than nothing. I asked, hoping for a backup plan, but Peter shook his head. By the time he arrived at work, the safe had already been opened, and the USB was missing. There were no signs of forced entry on the safe, suggesting the culprit was someone from inside a company.
Instead of looking for the culprit, we should focus on recovery first.
William tried to calm the suspicion-filled atmosphere. Indeed, he was right. While the culprit could be sought out later, the presentation deadline wouldn't wait, The team agreed and began the recovery efforts urgently. However, Peter had a different perspective.
If we're not looking for the culprit, doesn't that make William the most suspicious?
Come on, Peter.
You just suspect me. Can we start working first, please?
Though Peter seemed to suspect William, it was William who was leading the recovery efforts. The recovery was challenging, but leveraging my mathematical skills fully, we managed to make progress. The situation improved significantly when Mr. Brown, now the president, also lent a hand. Thanks to everyone's efforts, including William's, the presentation materials were completed. Throughout the day, Peter appeared irritated. Though he was helping, it seemed like he was struggling to focus on his work.
Everyone did a great job.
The president's voice filled the dim office as darkness enveloped the outside world. It was already late. When I looked at the clock, both the minute and hour hands were pointing at 12. Good job all of you today. Everyone started to say their words of appreciation to each other. Normally, I'd hurry home, but unfortunately, there were no more trains. It seemed ridiculous to spend dozens of dollars on a taxi to get home. So, we ended up staying the night at the office. After being away for a few minutes, the president returned to the office. After stepping out for a few minutes, Mr. Brown returned with a large tray in his hands.
This is my way of thanking everyone for their hard work. Please help yourselves.
He placed the tray on the desk. It was sushi. The realization that delivery was still possible at this time. Come to think of it, I was so engrossed in my work that I forgot about dinner. With a feast laid out before us, everyone remembered just how hungry they were. The sushi disappeared rapidly until only pickled ginger and empty plates remained.
Now, are you all full?
After the meal, as sleepiness began to set in, the president started a conversation. He was holding a tablet in one hand and operating it with the other.
The loss of crucial data and the USB from the safe. What a significant incident.
It was a reminder of why we were staying so late.
However, the culprit made a mistake underestimating our security.
As he said this, the president turned the tablet screen towards us.
It's troubling, Peter.
The screen showed Peter taking the USB from the safe. It recorded around 6:30 that morning. Only someone with key duty would be in the office at that hour. And it wasn't his week.
This week's key duty was assigned to a girl from another department. She mentioned that around 6 a.m., she saw a familiar car parked at the convenience store.
It seems she didn't actually see Peter then, but because the same car was parked in the company's parking lot around 8 a.m., it left an impression on her. The car's color, model, and license plate number were all identified, leaving him in a very difficult position.
Shall we hear an explanation?
Ick.
He hung his head and groaned. Noticing the cold stares from the team members, Peter eventually began to mumble.
Actually, I've received an offer from another company.
He revealed that he was secretly headhunted due to his excellence. They offered me better terms than this company, and I couldn't turn it down.
But there was a condition attached to accepting the offer. That was my motivation for what I did.
If this project succeeded, our company would take a significant lead over our competitors. He was ordered to ensure that didn't happen, he explained, his voice breaking with sobs. However, No matter the circumstances, his actions were inexcusable. The president fired him on the spot and sent him home forcibly. As everyone else settled into sleep, I found myself awake, gazing out the window.
Can't sleep.
The president. Yo, I guess I'm just not feeling it tonight. There was tension, yes, but also sadness for the senior who had taught me so much, now gone.
Well, we've been through a lot. How about we do some math to clear your head?
No way, thank you, but I've had enough for today. We shared a laugh, reminding me of our discussions back in my middle school.
Actually, I should tell you, it was William who suggested you for this project.
What? William did?
Yes.
It was a surprising turn of events. Given that I thought he had held a grudge against me since the first interview, this revelation was quite a shock. However, today's events had made me see him in a new light. Seeing his dedication to the recovery effort had completely changed my initial impression of him. People can change, for better or for worse, just like William and Peter. For better or for worse. It just like William and Peter.
William seems to recognize your abilities. He's a talented individual himself, though a bit peculiar in some aspects.
I almost blurted out, "That goes for you too, the president." But I held back. If he says you too, it's over. After more conversation, sleepiness began to take over the tension.
John.
Yes.
Could you finally tell me the answer to that problem you created?
Sure, let's go over it after 10 years. I began to jot down the problem statement and explanation on the back of some unnecessary documents on the desk. As expected, the president quickly grasped the difficult parts. It seemed the solution was simpler than expected, like finding the egg of Columbus. And finally, so the answer is undefined.
Undefined, ho?
Yes, kind of like humans, right?
Yes, like mathematics and like the human heart. Truly a difficult and beautiful problem.
I had wished we could talk about mathematics like old times. The work comes first. It's time to sleep and prepare for the presentation. Laying down on stacked cushions, I fell asleep immediately from exhaustion. The next day, our presentation to the client was a huge success. They decided to adopt our system. Moving forward, we'll start with updating confidentiality agreements and other procedures. Once that's completed, the system will officially go live.
It's going to get busy from here,
the president announced to the project team. Despite understanding the immense workload ahead, no one showed any displeasure. There was a definite bond among the team members. After some time, I found myself diligently working as one of the president's key supporters, with William being the other. William was the other wing. Both of us had been directly acknowledged by President for our capabilities. By then, I had grown to respect William's diligence. Well, I do respect you, but your jump to conclusions and narrow-mindedness could use some work. He looked like he might get angry for a moment, but he responded quite calmly.
You might want to work on not saying everything you think, too.
We hadn't exactly become friends, but this relationship, full of confrontations, wasn't too bad. Because we could exchange opinions without any reservations. Humans are indefinable. Good people can turn bad. Bad people can turn good. Having experienced various misfortunes and happiness, I was no exception.